One minute he was here, the next minute he was gone.
Search and rescue is currently underway after the disappearance of a young boy. Officials are hopeful the child will be found. This is Jill Edwards reporting.
You were just playing, and then he was gone.
Please, if anyone has seen anything, contact us. We just want our son back.
It's like he vanished.
Oh Lord, where's he at? Someone find my baby! Oh God!
We currently have several teams combing the area. So far we haven't found anything, but we are early in the search. We will continue to search and bring in more crews if necessary.
Strange phenomenon, mysterious disappearances, sightings of unusual creatures, aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot. These are just some of the intriguing and bizarre cases you will find in the Crypto Files. Every 40 seconds, a child goes missing in the United States. If you add in the reports of missing adults, the number of missing persons climbs to a staggering 900,000 per year in the United States alone. This large number does not include those that go missing outside of the USA, or cases that are not reported at all. Of course, many of these cases are solved. In some cases, it involves runaways or family abductions. In very tragic cases, remains may be found and identified as a missing person.
This morning, detectives with the Fayetteville Police Department Homicide Unit recovered what we believe to be the remains of Private First Class Kelly Bordeaux. The remains were located in a deeply wooded area.
According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, there are currently around 40,000 unidentified human remains nationally. In time, the hope is that these remains can be identified and some of the missing person cases solved. While many cases are solved, or the case points to foul play, there are some disappearances which seem more mysterious and unexplainable, where the details and findings seem to give us more questions than answers. In this program, the Crypto Files takes a look at one such case. This case takes us to Tennessee and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Great Smoky Mountains National Park was chartered by the United States Congress in 1934 and officially dedicated by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1940. The park encompasses 522,419 acres, making it one of the largest protected areas in the eastern United States. It straddles the ridgeline of the Great Smoky Mountains, part of the Blue Ridge Mountains, which are a division of the larger Appalachian mountain chain. The border between Tennessee and North Carolina runs northeast to southwest through the center line of the park. It is also the most visited national park in the United States, topping out with over 11.3 million recreational visitors in 2016. The park is home to a large variety of historical sites and buildings. It is home to a host of activities that include hiking, camping, and fishing. It is also the home of mystery and tragedy. Here is one such case. The year was 1969. A young, almost 7 years old, Dennis Martin is visiting the Great Smoky Mountain National Park with his father Bill, his grandfather Clyde, and his 9-year-old older brother Doug and 2 cousins. The family lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was common for them to take hiking trips. But this trip would turn out tragic. Young Dennis was just 6 days shy of his 7th birthday. Dennis was a husky and healthy 6-year-old who liked to hike and camp. That day, Dennis and his family were hiking to a beautiful spot known as Spence Field. Spence Field is close to the Tennessee-North Carolina border, and if visibility is good, you have outstanding views of the North Carolina side of the Smokies. Spence Field is named after James Spence, who built a cabin in the area in 1830. The previous night, the group had stayed at the Russell Field Shelter, which was 2 miles west of Spence Field. Once at Spence Field, the young boys decided to play a game of hide and seek, and then circle around and scare the family. All the boys returned to camp, except Dennis. According to the final report, Dennis was last seen around 4:30 p.m. as he darted behind a bush at Spence Field. The search for Dennis was the most massive undertaking in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park's history. A search that many say was filled with errors, hampered by heavy fog and flash flooding. On the day of the disappearance, word quickly spread of the missing boy, and his description was passed around to area campers and officials. The day Dennis disappeared, he was wearing a red t-shirt, dark green hiking shorts, white socks with black Oxford shoes.
We searched the North Slope. We found no signs of the boy. We still got 2 teams in there now. We will find him.
The massive search for young Dennis included 1,400 people. Park rangers, Boy Scouts, hunters, college students, firefighters, and the police. The effort logged over 13,000 man-hours looking for little Dennis. There were members from 57 different rescue squads from 6 different states. These squads logged over 26,000 additional man-hours. Almost 200 hours of flight time was logged by helicopters, but still, no signs of Dennis. Other agencies that were also involved were the United States Special Forces, the Cherokee Indian Reservation, the Tennessee Highway Patrol, and several others. Many other agencies provided food and medical services. Numerous media outlets in the form of TV, radio, and newspapers covered the disappearance of Dennis Martin. The operation was a massive undertaking. Finally, after a few days of searching, a possible break in the case was presented by Harold Key. Mr. Key told officials what he had seen and heard. The day Dennis went missing, Mr. Key was in the Rowans Creek area. He told officials what he heard that day. He described it as an enormous, sickening scream. Mr. Key also said he had noticed a rough-looking, unkempt man creeping through the forest. Mr. Key thought it could be moonshiners, so he just passed it off. The Rowans Creek area is about 2.5 to 3 miles from Spencefield, where Dennis was last seen. Sadly, officials more or less just dismissed Mr. Key's report and felt it was not connected to the missing boy because the distance was too great for the young boy to have traveled. But could they have been mistaken? Mr. Key's description of the man being unkempt has fostered the idea that Dennis could have been abducted by a rogue Sasquatch. This is an assumption that is still held by many until this day. There was more potentially overlooked evidence as well. A set of small shoe and footprints were found near Eagle Creek. The small shoe print was described as being an Oxford type, the same type of shoe young Dennis was reported to have been wearing. It appeared to be a case of one shoe on and one shoe off scenario, as a small foot track was also found. These tracks were followed about 300 yards according to search volunteer James Harmon. The tracks were eventually lost in a branch and could no longer be followed. That branch feeds into Eagle Creek, which is about 3.5 miles from Spencefield, where Dennis was last seen. Again, this was dismissed as being too far away for the young boy to have traveled. Some even thought the tracks could have been made by search volunteers, but there were no children in the search parties. During the search, there was a report that came in of a young boy wearing a red t-shirt and off-green shorts walking near Cades Cove campground. This offered up hope, but it was short-lived. Rangers investigated the sightings and soon learned that the boy was Michael Devlin and not Dennis Martin. The family was from Kansas and staying at the campground. It was explained to the family about the disappearance of Dennis Martin, and the Rangers kindly asked the family to change the boy's t-shirt to keep down confusion. Young Dennis Martin went missing on June the 14th of 1969. The main search for him was called off in September of 1969. But this was not the end of this mysterious case. A few years after Dennis went missing, a man who was illegally hunting ginseng on the state park found the remains of what appeared to be a small child. He found them in an area known as Tremont, near a place known as Big Hollow. The remains included various bones and a small skull. Fearing prosecution for hunting ginseng on the park, the man did not immediately report his grim findings. From Spencefield to Big Hollow is approximately 5 miles. Could it have been little Dennis? If so, how did little Dennis get there? It was 1985 when the ginseng hunter finally reported finding the bones and the small skull. A search team was organized and the man led the team to the area. The area was searched, but no bones or remains were ever found. This led some people to believe that the man made up the story about finding the remains. But surely, after all those years, the bones would have rotted away or been eaten by rodents. Another interesting factor is that some reports claim the shoe print and track were found heading in the direction that the remains were found. Was this evidence overlooked? Was there some kind of cover-up, like many believe? Park officials and the parents of Dennis Martin had different theories about the disappearance. Park rangers stated they were convinced the boy just got lost and perished near Spencefield. But If that was so, then why did many search teams and volunteers not find him? Spence Field was searched heavily. Dennis's parents felt very differently than the park rangers did. Dennis's father, Bill Martin, said,
"The fact that there has not been one shred of evidence turned up about Dennis leads my wife and me to believe he might have gotten out of the park somehow."
But park rangers insisted that they felt certain Dennis never left the park.
"We feel certain he never left the park. It's a rugged area and most difficult to find anything. Only recently, an airplane that had been missing about 15 months on a flight over the Smokies was found. If it took that long to find a plane, you can see how difficult it would be to find a young boy."
So, just what happened to Dennis Martin? It would seem that if he had fallen victim to some type of animal attack, some type of evidence would have been found. But no blood or pieces of clothing were ever found. If a person abducted little Dennis, then why would they continue to drag a screaming, struggling, and crying child up to Big Hollow just to kill them? This is, of course, assuming that the found remains story is true, and that the remains belong to Dennis Martin. The Crypto Files has attempted to plot the main areas surrounding this disappearance on a map. If you start at Spence Field and head toward Rowan Creek, where the scream and unkempt man was seen by Mr. Key, that's only about 2.5 to 3 miles from Spence Field. Then if you turn and go towards Eagle Creek, where the shoe and foot tracks were found, that is about 3 miles for a total of about 6 miles. Now, if you continue from Eagle Creek and travel toward Big Hollow, where the remains were reportedly found, that is an additional 8.5 to 9 miles, bringing the total trip to around 15 miles. This is, of course, assuming that Dennis was traveling in this exact direction. There are just so many unanswered questions about the disappearance of Dennis Martin. How did all the searchers miss him? Why was potential evidence dismissed? We may never know the answers to these questions or the complete truth about the disappearance of Dennis Martin. Many still speculate that Dennis was taken by a Bigfoot. There are some historical reports dealing with Bigfoot abductions, but mostly it appears to be adults that were taken. For instance, the 1924 Albert Osterman case. Osterman was a lumberjack and a woodsman who was on vacation in British Columbia when he was allegedly abducted by a Sasquatch while he was sleeping in his sleeping bag. Osterman claimed that his ordeal lasted 6 days before he managed to escape. In 1928, there was a similar case that involved trapper Mukalat Harry on the west coast of Vancouver Island. He also managed to escape in his canoe. But there are some cases that involve children as well. In 1976, the mother of a young boy told the media and the police that she saw a Sasquatch try to abduct her son. Of course, to many, this is all speculation, and most still consider Sasquatch nothing more than a myth. But could it offer an explanation as to what happened to Dennis Martin? Many say yes. According to the Bigfoot Researchers Organization sighting database, there have been 5 reported Bigfoot sightings in and near the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and 100 reported sightings in the remaining parts of Tennessee. Another interesting development during the case were the predictions by psychic mediums and clairvoyants. These predictions played a definite part in the search for Dennis Martin.
Look around the area where the boy was last seen playing. He went down, was walking, did not stumble or fall, inclined and turned off to the left at a 40 to 45 degree angle and up a little.
He will be found 2.5 miles to the left of where last seen by father, brother. Felosi place, hung up in bushes.
My name is Jeffrey Owens. I'm a psychic investigator, and I had a dream about a lost boy 2 nights in a row. In the dreams, he's not very far from where he was lost.
The Martin family seemed very receptive to these prediction attempts, and the predictions kept coming in. Carson Brewer of the Knoxville News Sentinel forwarded a message from a lady telling searchers to start looking in the trees and treetops and to stop looking on the ground. There were numerous other predictions. All were checked and rechecked, but none of them seemed to pan out. There have been other cases in the past where psychics were successful in helping to locate a missing person. Knowing that psychics have been used by police and investigators in the past, a colleague with an interest in the Dennis Martin case reached out to us. The colleague wishes to remain anonymous, but they arranged a session with a well-known West Coast psychic. The psychic attempted to contact young Dennis and asked him questions. Here are the questions, replies, and the psychic's visions.
Dennis, there are people who have been investigating these disappearances for many years, but so far little is known from these investigations.
Shame, field, search, dig earth, find.
Can you tell us what happened to you in June 1969 at the Spence Field on the Appalachian Trail?
Murder, lots to listen to. Basin, down by the river. Shooting river, trail, nothing behind. Mountain attack, mountain lion, den.
Dennis, from where you are right now, are you able to tell us anything about the other disappearances?
Can't bring back alive.
Can you give us any details that would help the investigators with these disappearances?
Yes, downhill, basin. Dig trench, see inside.
At this point, the psychic medium stated,
I'm seeing the word Greenfield and the word California. Looked up, it's a town in California. I'm feeling like the word is, there's a disappearance around it. Check there. Could mean something to the investigators as well. Seeing the word Wisconsin.
The psychic medium also asked Dennis the following question.
Are you aware of the Bigfoot people?
No. Rotten teeth. Dog stolen.
The psychic offered some interpretation of the answers and stated that if he, Dennis, is aware of Bigfoot, he sees them as dogs or mountain lions. The psychic also stated they don't feel that he, Dennis, saw his death coming. It was a total shock. While this session with the psychic did not produce any clear-cut answers, maybe the information is in some way helpful to the investigators. There is also another theory about the disappearance of Dennis Martin. The theory is that young Dennis was kidnapped by someone. The Martins even met with FBI agent Jim Reich about the possibility of a kidnapping. But the lack of evidence supporting a case of kidnapping prevents the FBI from launching a full-scale investigation. What if young Dennis was kidnapped? Could he still be alive? If he was kidnapped at such a young age, he might not even know himself as Dennis Martin. He may not even realize he was kidnapped. If Dennis Martin was kidnapped and is still alive, he would now be 54 years old. In 2014, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System released a composite image of what Dennis might look like at 51. In the case of Dennis Martin, there seems to be more questions than there are answers. If you or anyone that you know may have information concerning this case, please contact the Great Smoky Mountain Police Department at 865-436-1230 or the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation 615-744-4000. Here is a look at some of the agencies and people involved in the massive search efforts. This has been the Crypto Files.